The Amateur is directed by James Hawes and is a new thriller that'll be out in theaters this weekend. And it just hit me that this is the last time I will be watching any of the trailers for The Amateur play in front of a movie. Before today, for the last few months, every time I've gone and seen a movie, I got a trailer for The Amateur. What a good run. Anyway, going into this movie. This follows Charlie Heller, played by Rami Malek, a decoder at the CIA whose world is completely turned upside down when Sarah, his wife, played by Rachel Brosnahan, is killed while she's on a trip in London. However, instead of the CIA doing their job to find out who did it, he wants to go after the killers himself. And that's something that might be tricky because he doesn't really have a lot of skills when it comes to being in the field. However, he's going to use the skills that he does have in order to catch whoever did this, and now we have a thriller. This is based on the book by Robert Littell of the same name, and what I did not know until very recently is that this has been adapted into a movie before, in 1981 with John Savage and Christopher Plummer. I haven't seen that version, unfortunately. I will check it out, and I'm curious to see how the sequence of events play out in that adaptation versus this one, and I'm curious to see what the differences are going to be. For now, however, I'm only talking about this 2025 version at the moment. Now, the way that this movie has been marketed, this version, is a very intense, fast-paced thriller. And if you see the trailers, you get a lot of that because of the big things that are going on over there. And there are big things in The Amateur, no doubt about it. And you will get all of the moments that you see in the marketing for it in the movie as well. But what you also get is somewhat of a slow burn, especially after you find out about Sarah dying, which is very early on in the movie. And a lot of it actually deals with Charlie and his grief and just wanting to, find some kind of catharsis to everything that has happened, but also dealing with the fact that his wife is gone. And as he's learning the skills that he is, and as he's going on this mission where he'll find each and every one of them, it's also something that is dealing with just the idea of taking these people on, and eventually he is going to try to kill them. But at the same time, there is that idea of the fact that this is not a killer. This is not a man who has been out in the field or had to pull a trigger, essentially. So how exactly is he going to deal with that situation? I thought that was actually surprisingly quite effective. It handled those themes quite nicely. And Rami Malek did a really great job in the movie. I thought he was great over here. This is one of my favorite performances from him in a while. And how he portrayed Charlie as someone using his skills when it comes to decoding and when it comes to the intelligence community to outsmart everybody who might be after him and staying one step ahead of it all. I thought he did a very good job of portraying that, and it's something that harkened back to something like Mr. Robot in that sense. So I feel like if people have watched that show and really enjoyed that show, they might like what he's doing over here. Lawrence Fishburne also was really good in the movie. He plays another CIA agent who is trying to essentially help him and give him some pointers on what to do, but then eventually he's also going on this journey, and I thought he did a really good job too. He was very funny in the movie as well. And eventually, as things kick off and this entire globe trekking adventure ensues, and eventually people start to get killed in the process, it leads to some intense, slick direction from Hawes and some cool sequences, all of it backed with a really great score by Volker Bertelmann, who just did movies like All Quiet on the Western Front and Conclave. Really great composer over there. He also just did Dune Prophecy, the HBO show. So yeah, he did a good job with that too. And I think overall it leads to a fairly solid movie. But like I said, it takes its time. It is not a movie that is rushing to get some places, and so there are a lot of moments where you just have a lot of downtime with characters. Now, personally, I didn't have a problem with that, but I can see some people maybe wanting something a little more fast-paced. You don't really get that over here all the time. This is a very old school espionage thriller. It feels like something that was from the 70s and 80s in its tone, and it very much embraces that aspect of it. It's something that I've really liked recently. A lot of movies have been sort of like going back a bit when it comes to exploring some things and just, being more within that moment of time. Except in this case, it's taking place in the very modern digital world with a lot of technology being used in order to do whatever needs to be done. So in that sense, it is more modern, but I just really like the fact that tonally speaking, it goes back a bit. But as much as I give the movie points for all of those things, in that attempt to be as unpredictable as possible with a lot of what Charlie is doing, it can also be a little predictable. There are aspects of this story which you see coming from a mile away. And there are character choices and things that are done where immediately when you're seeing those things play out in the movie, you go, well, I have a feeling that the next scene is probably going to be this. And then that's the exact thing that happens. There are a couple of moments like that where you get, very obvious things happening because of something that was set up a while ago. Also, I feel like besides Rami Malek and Lawrence Fishburne, you don't get a ton of time with the other supporting characters, like Holt McCallany and Julianne Nicholson. They're at the CIA and they've got stuff going on the side. And besides a few things, they don't really add much to the movie. The only other supporting character who I feel like has any kind of impact is Catriona Balfe. She plays someone who Charlie runs into at one point, and she ends up being a pretty, decent character. I liked her in the movie. Beyond that, the supporting cast could have done a lot more, especially because when we get into all of those, subplot aspects, things that are going on, they're not as interesting as what Charlie is doing, because so much of that personal journey that he's also going on is very interesting, especially for someone who doesn't have enhanced combat skills. Like, he's not about to exactly go into a fight ready to win the thing. He might get his ass whooped. So while there are some issues that I do have with it, and I think there are points where it could be refined, I was very entertained by The Amateur. And it's a movie that I just really had a good time watching. I might check out the original 81 version because I'm curious how that did some things and how that handled the story. But I think this is a good time. I'm curious what others are going to think though. And like I said, there's a reason I mentioned the idea of the marketing, showing you some stuff. It's like, yes, you'll get those moments of spectacle and it's very impressive at times, but you're also here for a movie that takes its time with certain aspects. It takes a while to pick up. But overall, a fairly solid thriller, and I'm going to give The Amateur a 7.5 out of 10. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more videos very, very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.